Yo, 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 yo. So I just did like 6 minutes of a review, more than that, and then just this stupid car came past and just made so much noise, and I was like, oh, screw this. Anyway, so I just finished reading The Hunger Games, 454 pages. I read it in a matter of 8 hours. I was really surprised. I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did. I thought it was going to be another fad, something like Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey, whatever, where people say, oh, it's really amazing, but really it's just wish fulfillment. This book is not wish fulfillment at all. Not once is it wish fulfillment. It's gritty, it's realistic, it's about dystopian America in a really screwed up society and children who have had to grow up and are forced to kill each other, which everyone knows what The Hunger Games is about because it's probably one of the most popular books on earth. So I'm just going to say that I loved it. I absolutely adored it. The last book that I really couldn't ever put down while I was reading it was Breaking Dawn. Before that, it was the other Twilight books, and then it was Harry Potter. I can't stand reading Twilight now; it just irritates me. Harry Potter, while I can still devour them, I know what happens in this. The Hunger Games. I had seen the movie a couple of months ago, um, but I hadn't. So I knew what was going on, but it was still nice to read. There was still very much that suspense. But it'll be definitely much more ramped up than in the next book because hopefully by the time I read the next book, I won't have watched the second movie. Um, so yeah, I'm going to start off by just talking a bit about the themes. The themes in this book, obviously, sacrifice, community, um, the value of human life, growing up, maturity, survival, all that kind of thing. The grittiness of it. Obviously, it's a magnification of what goes on in our world today. The world that we live in is a dog eat dog world. I mean, it's every man for himself, and this is kind of really taken to the extremes, but it's very relatable because you see the way that Katniss, in particular, because you're seeing from her point of view, obviously, is fighting for survival, not just for her survival, but for the survival of her mother and her sister, especially after her father died. And then also for her friend, I feel, Gale, he's a hunting buddy kind of thing. But then also shows she cares about other people in the district. I mean, Madge, for example. Um, at the start, I think she sacrifices herself for Prim's sake. Even before that, when they enter the names into the bowls every year, she um puts her name in, is it 40 times? I can't exactly remember. So her family can get more grain, and that in itself I feel was just such a huge sacrifice. She even said she said she wouldn't let her sister put any extra names in. She'd put more in herself in her own name. But unfortunately Prim was chosen, and that was really, that was a huge thing for her because Prim's like the most precious thing to her, so she kind of gave up herself and entered herself into the Hunger Games. And even during the training, watching the way the other tributes kind of act and whatnot, seeing how Peter acts, getting close to Peter, playing the game of playing the capital audience, and indeed in the games themselves, even at the end, after the games, she understands that it's not just about protecting her family and people in her district, it's about protecting everybody. I mean, Katniss has never been, I feel, a person who, like Clove or Glimmer or Cato, I don't know how you say his name, who would just kill because the Hunger Games in their districts is glamorized and is made heroic. When Gale says right at the beginning, how can it be, it must be like killing an animal, killing another human being. Even then, even though she never taken human life, then she was like, you know what, no, it can't be that easy. So she kind of had a grasp on what was important. And then during the games where she teams up with Rue and obviously Peter, and indeed she shows her concern for the girl who lit a fire on the first night. I think she was killed. Yeah, she was killed. And then Rue, Foxface, and even Kato, and obviously Thresh, not Fresh, Thresh. I felt that she didn't want them to die. I think she just felt trapped by the Hunger Games, but she knew it was something she had to do to protect her own, to protect obviously her sister, who she loved more than like everything on the earth. But in the game, her hatred for the capital grew, and she understood that if people, and obviously it's not as easy as just standing up and doing it, but if people just realised that, no, I think they did realise it was all wrong, but I think she was hoping that if people just stood up somehow in any way and told the capital to go and screw itself, then that'd be a revelation in itself. But obviously she knows the repercussions of that. But I think she kind of got a real sense of community and wanted to be free in the Hunger Games, which is ironic because she was trapped there, and it was literally a place where she was sent to die. So that was really interesting to see. And I think Katniss was very intelligent. She wasn't a character who was from the get-go perfect. She wasn't a love interest. She wasn't ever really romanticised in any way whatsoever. I mean, if you look at her from an outside perspective, she's very hard, she's very intelligent, she's very grueling. She does what she has to do to get by, and she's indeed the girl on fire. And she's always had to survive. So she's never been like a silly heroine who's a Mary Sue, who's good at everything, who never has to sacrifice anything. She's really, I feel, a token for how it is these days, for how people have to live and how people have to sacrifice things, how it's always competition, etc., etc. But the remarkable thing about Katniss is she's so young, she has all these like weights on her shoulders, and I just really like her character for that. And yeah, she played this whole love triangle, this love angle. I think she played it really, really well with Peter. Obviously because she's a teenage girl and they had been so close throughout the games and stuff, like watching each other's back, healing each other, thinking about each other, she did start to grow real feelings for him, I think. So that was interesting to see. Though there were only two things about the book that really irritated me, and one was the fact that she kind of was growing feelings for him. I just completely not interested at all in her relationship with Peter. I just think it's unnecessary. And I understand that it does make her more relatable, but I just wasn't interested. I loved the whole thing, you know, when she was training, and then when she the game started, I loved that bit. I thought it was so action packed. It was just amazing to read. I just felt that Peter and the relationship with him was very boring, and I was like, oh. But you know, at the same time, he does protect her. They do kind of feed off one another, and it's it's a relationship that works both ways. The other thing that I disliked, oh, what was it? Oh yeah, the characterization of some of the characters. Glimmer from District 1, I just thought she was very stereotypical. She was a stereotypical bitch character who was dominant, leading. She was a dominant alpha female, and because of that, she was a bitch. This whole thing where strong women must be bitches comes in. It really irritates me, that kind of stereotype, because I I I don't think there was really any reason for her to be a bitch. I mean, I understand that District 1 is the closest thing to the capital, so they do have a lot of wealth, they do have egos, they are told that they're better than like other districts, than all the other districts. So there is that kind of like mentality going on where they think they're better, they're entitled to something. but I don't think that necessarily would have made someone a bitch or an asshole or whatever. For me, it just doesn't really calculate all that much. And it was the same with the tributes from District 2, Clove and Kato. They were just sick, as in, they just wanted to torture, and I don't get, because you have to realise that they were children. I mean, I understand that it is a dystopian future where people do have to survive, but it's just, if you look at Katniss and then Prim, then other people, like people, all the tributes from the other districts, they're not like that. Well, most of them aren't like that, and I just wonder, why are they so savage? I know that they're enemies and everything like that, but just because they were enemies doesn't mean they had to be completely portrayed as evil. I just didn't get that. That was kind of weird, especially as a child. Because they were children, like I said. One of the other things that bothered me, and I didn't realise it bothered me until I read someone else's review, was the thing at the end with the mutations, and they were stylized after the dead tributes. I thought that was an unnecessary detail. It was just kind of weird. I was just, why would they add that? There was no need for them to add that detail. It didn't serve any purpose. It didn't kill them. It didn't do blah blah blah. And unless obviously it was for entertainment purposes for the people watching at the Capitol, because it was a very hyped up Hunger Games. It was a very exciting Hunger Games that year. But I just thought it was tasteless, really. Obviously, the whole book is tasteless, but I think that just went on a different moral level. It was kind of weird. I just felt uncomfortable watching it. Reading about it. Yeah, the book, the pacing was it was excellent. There was never really any time wasted, even when they were training, which was quite not a massive portion of the book, but it was quite thick. And then the portion where Peter is injured and they're kind of getting him back to health, even then, the time was used really well. It was well accommodated. There wasn't any tacky add-ons of unnecessary angles. I think the only thing that they added that was a bit weird was the Avox girl, but I think she might have some influence in the future books. I'm not sure. I hope she does, because if not, there wasn't really any bearing on the story with the Avox girl inclusion. I think it was a nice kind of detail to have, but it wasn't really necessary. And I know that everything in a book doesn't have to be relevant, but in the Hunger Games, 99% of the content and the dialogue and the characters are relevant characters, and they have a role to play. So it's kind of strange, a bit out of place to see random things that don't really serve any purpose. You think, why are they doing that? What's that there for? So yeah, my favourite character, Thresh. I loved Thresh. There wasn't much of him at all, but I thought he was very fair. He was very he was honourable, I think, but he wasn't an idiot, and that's what I really liked about him. And Foxface, I loved her. I thought she was so sweet, and I was just really sad when she died. Just because it was such an innocent way to die as well, dying of hunger and just looking at these berries and that cheese and taking it and trying to survive. Not really interested in Peter. He was a bit of a boring character for me. I don't hate him, but I don't really like him. He's just meh. And I'm not coming from a love angle kind of perspective, but I much prefer Gale as a character. Peter, I just feel which kept going on about him as the boy with the bread and talking about bread. Honestly, I just thought he was really pathetic. I was like, really, Katniss, you're falling for this? But you know what? I don't know. Katniss's taste in men is obviously has a huge disparity. She likes Gale, who's sturdy, strong. He can provide for himself and for his family, and then you have Peter, who lives on bread and is a bit of a wuss, really, but I don't know, that's her own personal taste. So the ending of the book was perfect. It wasn't all lovey-dovey. It definitely made me want to read more. I want to know what happens to the people in the district. I want to see what happens with Gale. I want to see what happens with their mother, and I want to see if they will reap the rewards of her winning the Hunger Games, and of course the house in the Victor's village. I'm so excited for that. So yeah, I'm going to go and buy the book whenever I can afford to do so. And yeah, thanks for listening to my review of The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins.